June 17th was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. The sun had barely risen over Willow Creek when Amelia Hartley slipped into her ivory gown, hands trembling not with fear, but with joy. Her mother teared up just watching her. Her friends whispered how lucky she was. By all accounts, it was a fairy tale morning. Cut to quote from her maid of honor tearfully. She looked like she stepped out of a dream. "I swear," she said, "nothing will ruin today. Not even the rain." But the rain never came. Amelia never walked down the aisle. Narration, voice cracks slightly. Somewhere between the bridal suite and the ceremony tent set up in her parents' backyard, she vanished. No one saw her leave. No note, no noise, just a half-finished cup of coffee, and a trail of white rose petals crushed underfoot. And the groom? He waited at the altar, expressionless. Still, almost too calm. Quick cuts. Groom staring blankly, guests murmuring, clock ticking. As panic set in, her father began searching the property. Her best friend called the florist, thinking maybe she had stepped out. The groom, Darren Calloway, just stood there, hands clasped, staring into space. Narration. When police arrived, they found no sign of a struggle, no broken windows, no tire tracks leading away. Her cell phone was on the dressing table, still unlocked. Her wedding shoes placed neatly beside the chair. But Amelia was gone. Sound. Distant thunder. They searched the entire estate, drones, dogs, volunteers. Nothing. But something about Darren didn't sit right with Amelia's mother. Quote, shaky voice. He didn't cry. Not once. He just kept saying, "She'll be back soon. She always does this. Always." That's when the cracks began to show. Because Amelia had never done anything like this. Not before. And certainly not now. The attic wasn't on the initial search list. Why would it be? It was sealed off, no stairs, just a narrow pull-down hatch in the hallway outside the bridal suite. But something didn't sit right with Officer Lillian Reyes. She noticed scuff marks on the hallway ceiling, a faint streak of dust disturbed around the latch. She tugged the cord, and what came down changed everything. Sound. Creak of old wood unfolding, the faint rustle of insulation, then silence. Inside that attic, dust-choked air, old boxes of holiday decorations, a forgotten crib, and then, wedged between insulation and wooden beams, a weathered notebook with Amelia's initials carved on the front. Inside, writings no one had ever seen before. Narration slows, voice thick with emotion. They weren't wedding plans. They weren't journal entries. They were letters, unsent, all to the same person, and none of them addressed to Darren. Some started years ago, others just weeks before the wedding. Dear Elijah, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't walk away again, but I still love you, always have. Who was Elijah? Her family had never heard the name. Neither had her friends. But Darren had, because when police confronted him with the notebook, his reaction wasn't shock. It was relief. Insert quote from Officer Reyes. He just said, "So she finally told someone." Not asked, not denied, just said that, like it was nothing. The notebook revealed a tangled web, a secret life Amelia had kept hidden from almost everyone. But why? And more importantly, where was she now? Narration deepens. That's when the calls started. From a blocked number. No voice on the other end, just a song. The same song Amelia was supposed to walk down the aisle to. Fade in eerie instrumental of Canon in D on a warped piano. Police traced the signal. It wasn't coming from across the state. It was coming from inside the Calloway property, somewhere near the stables. And behind the stables was a locked shed no one had opened in years. What they found inside would haunt even the most seasoned officers. Narration, soft whisper. Her wedding dress torn, mud-smeared, folded neatly on a chair. And on the wall, a photo of Amelia, smiling but not recent. It was older, taken years before she met Darren. Pinned beside it, scrawled in marker, "She was never yours." When they showed Darren the photo, the one found taped to the shed wall, he froze. Not because he recognized Amelia, but because of the man standing next to her, arm around her waist, kissing her cheek, and smiling straight into the camera, like he owned the moment. That man wasn't just anyone. His name was Elijah Kane, a name not listed on the wedding registry, not mentioned in any of Amelia's planning, and absent from every social media post she'd ever made. But Elijah wasn't a stranger to Amelia. He was her past. It was like finding a ghost, Darren later admitted in a deposition. She told me he died in a car accident 3 years ago, except Elijah didn't die. He disappeared right after being released from a private psychiatric facility in Oregon. No forwarding address, no contact with family, nothing. And now, suddenly, his face was turning up in Amelia's secret writings, in photographs that shouldn't exist, and in places that Darren had never been allowed to go. The truth was unraveling. Narrator pauses, voice tight with suspense. Amelia had been planning her escape for months. But why lie about Elijah? Why say he was dead? Unless she was hiding from him. Detective Reyes traced the old photo to a small printing kiosk, one of those DIY booths inside a local pharmacy. The timestamp? 2 days before the wedding. So Amelia printed the photo herself. But where was Elijah? And why had she left the image taped to a wall like a message for Darren to find? Insert quote from Reyes. This wasn't a love triangle. It was a warning. She knew someone would come looking for her. She wanted us to know who. Just 72 hours after Amelia's disappearance, a tip came in. A young woman, matching Amelia's description, had been seen boarding a Greyhound bus, alone. No luggage, no phone, just a canvas tote bag and a scarf pulled over her hair. The destination? Nowhere traceable. The ticket had been paid in cash. Security footage showed her standing in line, glancing over her shoulder, twice, and behind her, several feet away, a man with his face obscured by a hoodie. He never boarded the bus. Narration tightens. That man, later identified, through facial enhancement, as Elijah Kane. He'd followed her. Or maybe she wanted him to. But if that's true, why vanish on her wedding day? Why leave behind a life she'd built so carefully? Unless it was never hers to begin with. And why, according to the bus driver, did Amelia whisper 4 haunting words as she stepped onto the bus? Please don't find me. Amelia didn't run because of cold feet. She ran because someone or something was chasing her. And the deeper detectives dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a missing persons case. This was a slow-burning horror years in the making. The name Elijah Kane sent a ripple through Amelia's records. Her college transcript, her hospital stays, her therapy notes, all sealed until a court order opened the door. And what they found inside was suffocating. 2019, Amelia admitted to an ER after being found unconscious in a motel off I-5. No ID, no shoes, just a handwritten note clutched in her fist. He told me if I screamed, no one would hear me. She never pressed charges. She never named him, but she did transfer schools 3 weeks later, and moved without telling anyone where. Elijah Kane had once been a guest lecturer on psychology at her college. He wasn't faculty. He wasn't supposed to be around students. But Amelia had fallen hard. Friends said he had a strange calm, the kind of charm that feels like control disguised as care. And when she tried to leave him, that's when she changed, said her roommate Kara. She stopped talking. She stopped eating. She started sleeping with a knife under her pillow. But that was years ago. Amelia had buried it. Or so she thought. Voice sharpens. 2 weeks before the wedding, Darren, her fiancé, received an anonymous email. Subject: You don't know her. Attached: a grainy photo of Amelia and Elijah. Her face was bruised. He never showed her the message. He deleted it because he trusted her. But now, after her disappearance, he forwarded it to police. The IP address? Spoofed. Routed through a dozen proxies. But one lead survived. A security camera from the gas station next to the cafe where the email was sent. The footage? A man with Elijah Kane's height and gait, wearing gloves, looking directly at the camera, then smiling. He wanted to be seen. Narrator leans in, voice urgent. Back at the precinct, Detective Reyes received a voicemail on her direct line. No caller ID. Just 6 words. She was mine. He stole her. Then silence. And in the background, a single, unmistakable sound. A wedding march, played on a music box. What do you do? Reyes asked. When the monster leaves a breadcrumb trail, do you follow it? Knowing it's a trap. The truth was closing in. But Amelia's disappearance wasn't just about love. It was about ownership, power, control, and someone wasn't finished playing. The day Amelia vanished was supposed to be the happiest of her life. But when police found the chapel's guest book, its pages slashed, a single phrase carved across the cover, they realized someone never wanted this wedding to happen, and he made sure it didn't. Detective Reyes and Officer Mendez drove to the chapel that never hosted a wedding. Dust still floated through the air, caught in the light slicing through stained glass. Candles on the altar never lit. Rose petals strewn on the floor, trampled, as if a storm had swept through. But it was the guest book that stopped Reyes cold. Carved into the leather cover, ragged deep was a sentence. Till death we reunite. E.K. Elijah Kane. Inside, someone had scribbled over every name, every signature. All but 2. Amelia Langston, Elijah Kane. But Amelia never signed it. Not in front of anyone. Not that day. So when? Reyes ordered the entire chapel closed for forensic investigation. That's when they found it. Beneath the altar. A small, velvet box, wedding ring inside. Not Darren's choice. Not the style Amelia picked. A black diamond surrounded by blood-red rubies. This is obsession, Reyes whispered. Not love. And something else. Hidden under the cushion in the ring box, an SD card. Inside it, a series of videos. No audio. Just Amelia sitting alone. Talking. Crying. Laughing at times. Always in the same dimly lit room. Same gray blanket. Same bruise on her wrist. Each file dated before the engagement. Each one taken without her knowing. Cut to interview with Darren, days after he viewed the footage. She told me she had therapy in college, that she got through a dark time, but she never mentioned him. Not once. And I thought, maybe that meant she was okay. He paused, swallowed hard. But I think she was just trying to forget. Then the tip came in. A delivery driver reported a woman matching Amelia's description wandering barefoot on the outskirts of Black Hollow, a ghost town 2 hours from the chapel. She was wearing a wedding dress, torn and stained with something red. But by the time police arrived, she was gone. Instead, they found a message scratched into the hood of an old car. He still wants the vows. Was Amelia running for her life? Or trying to send a message? As detectives rushed to Black Hollow's only remaining house, the one person with answers was already watching them. From the woods. The house in Black Hollow had been condemned years ago. No electricity. No phone lines. No footsteps in the dust until that morning. What they found inside turned a missing bride case into a psychological nightmare. Detective Reyes stepped through the creaking door of the lone house standing in the woods. Mendez followed, flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The smell hit first, mildew, mold, something metallic. Something wrong. On the wall, framed by vines and rot, was a photograph. Amelia as a child, no older than 8. Her smile was wide. But Reyes noticed something in the background. A man, standing in the shadows behind her. Not a family member. Not listed in the school archives. Not supposed to be there. Who took this photo? Reyes whispered, her voice barely audible over the creaks. Upstairs, the room had clearly been used recently. The mattress was made. On the nightstand sat a half-empty bottle of water, dated 2 days ago. Beside it, a teddy bear, Amelia's, and taped to the back of that bear, a blinking red dot, a hidden lens. Forensics later confirmed the feed was live streaming. But to where? And more importantly, who was watching? Inside the closet, tucked behind boxes of rotting books and old coats, was a diary, bound in blue velvet. Reyes flipped it open. Page 1. My name is Amelia. He promised I'd be safe here. Page 7. He talks to me through the walls. He says no one else will ever love me this much. Page 13. The day I tried to run, he took something. Not from me, from himself. A warning. There were tear stains on the pages. Small splatters of blood. And at the very back, a pressed flower. A lily. The kind Darren had planned for the wedding bouquet. It wasn't fresh. It had been saved for years. Cut to Mendez in a later interview. I've never seen fear written like that. It wasn't just a journal. It was a goodbye letter spread across pages. Like she knew she'd never walk out. And then came the final blow. The laptop found beneath the floorboards had a single video file. A shaky recording. A room. A voice. This is what real love looks like, the man whispered from behind the camera. She just forgot. But I'll help her remember. On screen, Amelia sat on the bed. Dazed. Bruised. Holding that same teddy bear. She looked up right into the lens. And mouthed a single word. Help. She vanished on the day she was meant to be found. But someone had planned this for years. Someone who never left the past behind. And the past was waiting in the basement. It was Mendez who stepped on it. Just one creak. That's all it took to change everything. Beneath the floor, something hollow. Reyes dropped to her knees, brushed the dust aside, and found it. A trapdoor, sealed shut with rusted bolts and an iron latch painted to blend with the old wood. It hadn't been used in a long time. Or maybe it had, and someone just made it look that way. With every pull of the crowbar, the silence grew heavier. And then, a hiss of cold air rose from below, carrying with it the sharp scent of mold, oil, and fear. A narrow staircase disappeared into darkness. No light, no sound. But there was something down there. They both felt it. Flashlight beam trembled slightly as it hit the base of the steps. It wasn't just a basement. It was a bunker. For walls, concrete-lined. And on the far side, a cot. Small, rusted, with leather straps. On the wall behind it, scratched in uneven, jagged letters, I still love you. And beneath it, a date, August 4th, 2011. Reyes froze. That was Amelia's 18th birthday. The day she disappeared for 2 weeks in college. The time she never spoke of again. Detective Reyes, voice cracking in her notes. This wasn't random. This wasn't sudden. This man had been watching her for over a decade. Grooming her without anyone realizing. He created a world for her underground. On a wooden table beside the cot sat a voice recorder. Old, dusty. But when Reyes pressed play, the cassette churned to life. Do you remember the stars? How I said you'd never be alone again. This is our forever. No one's going to ruin it this time. The voice was calm, gentle, almost kind. But something in the tone sent shivers down Mendez's spine. It was Darren's voice, but there was a second voice underneath. A woman, crying. You promised to let me go. I will, he replied softly. Just not yet. And then came the real twist. Tucked beneath the recorder, a second diary. But this one wasn't Amelia's. It was his, page after page. Plans, surveillance, entries detailing every encounter since they met. Today she wore her blue scarf. She smiled when I asked about her mother. She doesn't remember that I know, that I saw everything. But she will. And at the very end, she's mine. Even if the wedding never happens, she'll still be mine. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was the final act in a story written years before Amelia ever put on that wedding dress. And the man she trusted most had written every word. The question wasn't whether Darren had lied. It was, how much did Amelia really know? Detective Reyes held the second diary like it was a ticking bomb. Each page dripped with obsession, control, and eerie precision. He hadn't just watched Amelia, he'd tracked her every movement since she was 18. But something in those entries chilled Reyes more than anything. There were names, other names, girls, dates, locations. Most had Amelia's initials at the top, but 5 didn't. CL, Tara D. unknown number 4, and one final entry, rehearsal, final scene. That line was dated a week before the wedding. Reyes whispered to Mendez, "This isn't just a love story gone wrong. This is a timeline of events. A script." The photo taped to the back cover made Reyes' heart stop. It wasn't Amelia. It was another girl. Blonde, maybe 17, smiling at a summer fair. The back was labeled, Chapter 1, Mine Forever. Later that night, back at the precinct, Reyes pulled up every missing persons case in the region for the past 15 years. 3 faces matched the diary's notes. One was last seen at a bookstore Darren once managed. Another disappeared near a lake cabin Darren's uncle had owned. A third was never identified, just a sketch. But the eyes, the same haunting eyes as Amelia. What Reyes uncovered next blew the case wide open. Darren wasn't Darren. His real name was Elias Darren Kane. A man who changed towns, jobs, and identities every few years. A man who always blended in. Too quiet to suspect, too charming to question. And the clincher? An old therapist's report buried in sealed juvenile records. Reyes found it thanks to a tip from a retired social worker. In it, subject displays dissociative tendencies, high intelligence, and calculated detachment. Believes love requires control. Demonstrates predatory traits. He was 12 years old. While Amelia prepared vows and flower arrangements, Elias Kane was preparing his masterpiece. And the wedding wasn't a celebration. It was his final performance. But something had gone wrong, and the curtain had fallen too early. Now Reyes needed just one thing, to find Amelia alive or not, and to answer the question everyone feared. If this was his final scene, what happened to the ones before her? The ribbon looked like nothing, until they unwrapped it. The search team was combing the storm-soaked wedding venue for the 3rd time. Mud clung to their boots, flashlights flickered, and the silence felt heavier with every passing hour. That's when Officer Green spotted something wedged beneath the arbor. A piece of satin, frayed and soaked. It had once wrapped Amelia's bouquet. He almost discarded it, until he noticed stitching on the inside. Tiny thread work, barely visible. It wasn't decorative. It was Morse code. Reyes and Mendez huddled under a canopy as the thread was analyzed. The message translated to, "Look under vows." The chapel was sealed off immediately. Inside, beneath the stage where Darren had stood with trembling hands and a trembling voice, the floorboards had been tampered with. Mendez pried one up, revealing a velvet box. Inside were 2 wedding rings and a flash drive. The rings were engraved, D and A eternally bound. But the flash drive was the key. When opened, it revealed a folder labeled Confession. There were video clips, dozens. Surveillance style. Women entering apartments. Women blindfolded. Women tied to chairs. One labeled Morning showed Amelia brushing her hair in what appeared to be a basement room. Her lips were chapped. Her smile forced. She whispered toward the lens, "If you found this, I knew you would. Please don't stop looking for me." The veil of illusion had completely dropped. This wasn't a runaway bride. This was a hostage, rehearsed, manipulated, and carefully staged. And Darren, Elias Kane, had orchestrated it all with the precision of a director filming his final act. But then, a break. One of the video's backgrounds showed a distinctive stained glass window. A detective from a neighboring town recognized it instantly. That's the old chapel upstate. It was decommissioned in '06. No power, no plumbing. Locals call it the Hollow. They drove through the night. No lights, no sirens. Just the hope they weren't too late. The chapel loomed in the fog like a ghost. Doors creaked. Floorboards groaned. And then, from the corner of the sanctuary, came a muffled sob. Amelia was there, wrapped in lace, eyes swollen, lips trembling. And just behind her, someone moved in the shadows. Not Darren. Someone else. Another woman. The moment Detective Mendez's flashlight caught Amelia's eyes, the world paused. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't even surprised. She whispered, "I knew you'd come. But you have to arrest her too." Everyone turned. Standing just a few feet away, half shrouded in shadow, was a woman in her early 30s. Pale, gaunt, dressed in a hospital gown, her wrists marked with faded bruises. She didn't run. She simply said, "He told me I'd never leave here alive if I spoke again." Her name was Claire Whitman, reported missing in 2016. Everyone had assumed she was long dead, but she wasn't. She'd been living in that chapel, or rather kept there. Amelia grabbed Mendez's sleeve. "He was making us act it all out. Again and again. He filmed it, called it his forever love story. I thought I was the only one." Claire added, barely audible, "He had rules. What to say, how to move. If you disobeyed, he'd bring in the projector and show you your own footage. Over and over." And then she pointed to the wall behind the altar. Peeling back a tapestry, they uncovered a room full of monitors. Old TVs, dusty laptops, and VHS players. One still playing a looped clip of Amelia smiling at the camera, saying, "I do." But that wasn't the worst part. A metal filing cabinet sat beside the screens, labeled by year. 2012, 2013, 2014. Each drawer contained names, hair samples, personal effects. 8 women. Only 2 were found alive. The rest, unaccounted for. Back at the precinct, Darren, or Elias Kane, had already vanished. He'd left a handwritten note in his apartment that read, "Love should never be taken, only preserved." He had planned the escape all along. And the worst part? There was no recent photo of him. He'd scrubbed everything: IDs, digital trails, facial recognition footprints. He could be anyone, anywhere, even someone watching this story. Weeks later, Amelia and Claire were reunited with their families, though nothing would ever be the same. Amelia's voiceover in her final recorded message echoed through the courtroom. He wanted a perfect love story, but love without freedom isn't love. It's prison. And the jury? Unanimous. Guilty in absentia. The manhunt continues. And so does the story. If you want more chilling, emotional true crime stories told with depth and real-time suspense, subscribe to The Veil of Secret. Because sometimes, what's hidden behind love is the darkest secret of all.